to our first person, Gary Flinn.
Okay. Everyone hear me fine?
Yep.
Okay. Of course, I'm working on my new book. It's almost ready. Deadline for the publishers December 1st. Should be coming out late winter, early spring. The title of this book is Hidden History of Flint. Of course, my first book, which came out 6 years ago, Remembering Flint, Michigan, is still available. It's at the area bookstores, also the back seat of my car, and the cover price is $19.99. $19.99.
Only $19.99.
Only $19.99. The forward to the new book will have updates because some chapters have had updates since the book came out 6 years ago. One of those updates has to do with the Capitol Theater, which had a chapter. At that time, the Capitol Theater was still closed, but now, as you know, it's being restored. And if you pass by the Capitol Theater downtown, you probably notice that plain-looking third-story addition is being torn down. That will restore balance to the Capitol Theater's front facade. In fact, if you go to my Remembering Flint, Michigan Facebook page, you'll see photos of the demolition of that third-story addition. For my reading today, or tonight I should say, I'll be reading, in fact I'll do some summarizing, of the first chapter of my next book, the one about Jacob Smith's founding of Flint. And did he have ulterior motives? Well, we'll find out. This chapter is called Flint, an Indian reservation. And again, I'll do some summarizing as I go along. The 1819 Saginaw Cession and Treaty ceded a large swath of central Michigan to the United States of America. The land was originally occupied by members of the Chippewa, Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Wyandot nations. As a provision of this treaty, 11 tracts of land along the Flint River, where present-day Flint is, were reserved for, I won't pronounce their names, so I'll just skip that. But they each got 640 acres of land located at or near the Grand Traverse of the Flint River in such matter as the President of the United States may direct. One man who had a major role in the treaty was the founder of Flint, Jacob Smith, who was a native of Quebec. He was the first white settler to set up shop in the area. He lived alone in Flint while his wife Mary and his children lived in Detroit. Sources dispute Mary's ethnic heritage. Some say she was of Scottish ancestry, others say she was a Chippewa. Jacob built his cabin along the Flint River around 1811. Flint was connected to Detroit by the Saginaw Trail, from which Saginaw Street, Dixie Highway, and Woodward Avenue developed. He was adopted by the Chippewa Nation and given the name Wabisons, meaning young swan. He established a fur trading business in present-day Flint with the natives. After his wife died, he moved permanently to his Flint River cabin in 1819. He died in 1825 and was buried by Baptiste Cochillos, a friendly mixed-blood trader, and Jack, an Indian boy whom Jacob adopted, beside his cabin near where First Avenue and Lyon Street is today. He was later reburied at Glenwood Cemetery. After the death of Smith's friend Chief Naomi in 1827, several members of his band dispersed to other parts of Genesee County. Looking at the map of the 11 tracts of land along the Flint River, there is more to it. 5 of the 6 lots north of the Flint River were actually assigned to Jacob Smith's children using their Indian names. Some say that, I'll skip that, who was given lot number 8, was a Chippewa mixed-blood daughter of Smith. For nearly 40 years, there was litigation over ownership of much of the Smith property, which retarded development north of the Flint River. The native population was decimated by outbreaks of cholera in 1834 and smallpox in 1837, diseases introduced by the white man. In 1836, the federal government established a land office for the sale of public land in the Flint River settlement, which was incorporated in 1855 as the city of Flint. For this article, I will concentrate on 2 of the 11 tracts in the Flint River Reservation. They are lot number 2, which is north of the Flint River, and lot number 7, which is south of the Flint River. Both of these lots include the immediate downtown Flint area. Lot number 7 was assigned to Francois Edouard Campo. He was a mixed-blood employee of Jacob Smith. He sold this land in 1830 to the first permanent white settler who brought his family over, John Todd, for $800. It was determined that Mr. Campo did not have plans to permanently settle on his land and had planned on selling the land if the price was right. John Todd and his wife Polly established a tavern where downtown Flint is today. Flint's first wedding took place in 1831 at Todd's Tavern. Lot number 2 was assigned to Albert J. Smith, who was born in Detroit in 1811 and Jacob Smith's only son. The patent for this lot was assigned by President Andrew Jackson on July 2nd, 1836, reserving this lot to Albert Smith, who was still living in Detroit at that time. He sold a quarter of lot 2 to his brother-in-law, Thomas DPW Stockton, on October 10th, 1836, for $25,000. The remaining 3/4 of the lot was sold to another brother-in-law, Chauncey S. Payne. Stockton and Payne jointly put out a $5,000 mortgage at the Farmers and Mechanics Bank of Michigan in 1838. That bank assigned the mortgage to Asa T. Crosby in 1947, which was reassigned by Crosby to Levi Brown of Brooklyn, New York for $4,000. Brown assigned the mortgage to Henry A. Brown in trust, also of Brooklyn, in 1851. The mortgage was released back to Payne and Stockton in 1853 as paid in full. In 1837, Payne platted the village of Grand Traverse, later known as Flint, in Lot 2, and a map was drawn. The map was stated that all regular lots represented on this map are intended to be 66 feet by 132 feet. Saginaw Street is 99 feet wide. Detroit Street, now MLK, is 80 feet wide. All other streets, 60 feet wide. In 1840, Stockton and his wife, Maria G. Smith Stockton, sold their land in 1842 to Payne, described as follows. I'll just skip the gobbledygook. On September 24th, 1819, and other land, accepting and reserving within said boundaries, such lots or parcel of land has been sold and deeded jointly to Thomas W. Stockton and Chauncey S. Payne, or sold prior to this date. A quitclaim deed was issued in 1845 for consideration of $100 in divers from, William Smith to Chauncey S. Payne for Section 2 and of the 11 sectors. When Jacob Smith died in 1825 at age 45, his tombstone gave the wrong birth year, his legal affairs were incomplete. The other 4 lots reserved for his children were number 6, intended for Harriet M. Smith, number 5 for Maria Smith Stockton, number 4 for Caroline Smith, number 3 for Louisa Smith Payne. The 5 patents for lots 2 and 6 were issued on June 2nd, 1836. Around that time, the aforementioned Jack, who helped to bury Jacob Smith, was claimed to have had ownership of lot number 2. In March 1841, Jack deeded his tract to Gardner D. Williams of Saginaw, who, in June 1845, conveyed a portion of the lot to Daniel D. Dewey of Genesee. They filed a lawsuit which would determine who was the real, I'll mention it, Mediterranean, I hope, and who was legally entitled to the lands. The case with Gardner L. Williams, Daniel D. Dewey, and Mediterranean and plaintiffs, and Chauncey S. Payne as defendant, was tried in Genesee County Circuit Court in March 1856. The jury in the trial decided that Chauncey S. Payne is not guilty of unlawfully withholding from said plaintiffs the premises described in matter and form as the said plaintiffs hath in the declaration of cause alleged. I believe Jack is William Smith, identified in the above quitclaim deed from 1845. So the real Mediterranean was Albert Smith, according to the jury. Albert Smith died in New York City in 1883. Chauncey Payne died in Flint in 1877. Louisa Payne died in 1888. Thomas B.W. Stockton died in 1890. Maria Stockton died in 1898. They were buried with Jacob Smith at Glenwood Cemetery. So while Smith's reservations were supposed to be reserved for the native peoples, the crossbreeding of white settlers, property sales to settlers, as well as Jacob Smith's family, whether or not they had Indian blood in them. Receiving lots prevented the reservation from becoming a true Indian reservation. Jacob Smith saw potential in the land along the Flint River when he negotiated for that land in the 1819 Saginaw Treaty. While the native peoples were generally friendly toward the settlers, there were some Indians who were hostile to the white man. One was an old Canadian chief, Kisconwo. During a break in the treaty negotiations, Smith and his allies were able to get Chief Kisconwo dead drunk before treaty negotiations resumed. That was one way Jacob Smith was able to get what he wanted in the treaty. Even though the Flint Reservation has not become a true reservation, such as the Chippewa Reservation near Mount Pleasant where the Soaring Eagle Casino is, I'm wondering if the fact that Flint did develop from an Indian reservation will allow for an Indian-run casino in any of the 11 lots drawn in the 1819 treaty. Article 4 of that treaty reads, in consideration of the cession aforesaid, the United States agreed to pay to the Chippewa Nation of Indians annually, forever, the sum of $1,000 in silver, and do hereby agree that the annuities due by any former treaty to the said tribe shall be hereafter paid in silver. Knowing that the government has a history of not fulfilling its obligations from the various treaties with the Indians over the years, I asked Anita Hurd, coordinator of the, I can't pronounce it, but that research center at the Zebuine Center of Anishinaabe Cultures and Lifeways at the Saginaw Chippewa Reservation of Mount Pleasant, if the government is still making annual payments in silver. Her answer was that the government is not making any payments to anyone from any treaty with the Chippewa Nation. So the Chippewa Nation may have a case if they want to repossess Flint. Come to think of it, considering how the city of Flint is right now, I don't think the Chippewa people would want Flint back. If they read the instructions of my abstract, dated March 25th, 1939, for my home, which is in Lot 10 of the original reservations, they would be shocked by paragraph 2, which reads, the said premises shall not be sold, conveyed, leased to, or in any way occupied by any person or persons not wholly of the white or Caucasian race. That restriction was rendered unenforceable by anti-discrimination laws in the 1960s, including the Fair Housing Act of 1968. Well, that's the chapter that will start off in more detail in my next book. And I thank you very much.
Great.